New Porsche 911 GT3s only come along once every 4 or 5 years, but when they do, they're always spectacular to drive. This is the brand new version, with a more powerful 4-litre engine and, praise be, the option of a manual gearbox. It could be the most spectacular one yet.
The new 911 GT3 is a development of the previous version rather than an all-new model. That said, there have been some huge technical changes. For the first time, buyers will have a choice of transmissions, 7-speed PDK or 6-speed manual. The previous version was PDK only, which upset many old-school purists, ourselves included. Welcome back, manual GT3. The PDK gearbox shifts gear slightly quicker than before, while the manual is the same brilliant gearbox that was found in the 911R. Both transmissions use dual-mass flywheels. The engine is now up to 4 litres. It's a new development that supersedes the 3.8 litre in the previous GT3 and the 4 litre in the Gt3 RS and 911R. It's still a normally aspirated flat 6. Porsche's engineers say they now fully understand this new engine architecture, which means they've been able to turn the wick right up. The focus was on increasing engine power while reducing resistance throughout. The crankshaft, for instance, now has a central fed oil system. The oil that lubricates the conrod bearings now runs through the centre of the crankshaft. This requires much less oil pressure, which means less internal resistance and ultimately more power at the wheels. There's also a completely new valve train. It does away with conventional hydraulic valve lift adjusters and instead uses a fixed system. Again, this reduces resistance because it requires much less oil pressure. Porsche says this one modification alone found 10 brake horsepower. Despite the longer stroke, this new engine revs all the way to 9,000 RPM. The 4-litre engines in the Gt3 RS and R didn't rev beyond 8,800 RPM, which is why the smaller 3.8 was always the sweeter engine. Porsche's now combined that 9,000 RPM redline of the 3.8 with the power and torque of the 4-litre. That should make for a spectacular engine. Porsche quotes 493 brake horsepower, although that's a very conservative figure, and 347 pound-foot of torque. That's 25 brake horsepower and 23 pound-foot more than the previous GT3. The engineers had less work to do on the chassis side. The dampers have been retuned and there are now helper springs on the rear axle for the first time, which gives more pliancy over bumps. As before, carbon ceramic brakes are available as an option. Porsche says the new GT3 is both sportier and more comfortable than the previous car. It uses the latest version of Porsche's electric power steering system, which we're told is better than ever. The new car also uses the smaller, more natural-feeling 360mm steering wheel. Rear axle steering is still standard fit. Again, it's the latest development with new software. One of the major improvements has been the aerodynamics. There's 20% more downforce than before, but with the same drag. That's been achieved by using the underside of the car to create downforce. The rear wing also sits higher up and further back than before, which means it reaches into cleaner, less turbulent air. At top speed, the GT3 develops 155 kilograms of downforce, which matches the 997 GT3 RS. There's no Nürburgring lap time to report just yet. We'll have to wait for the circuit to reopen in spring, but Porsche reckons it'll go under 7 minutes 20 seconds. The 0 to 60 time is 3.9 seconds for the manual and 3.4 for PDK. The top speed is 199 miles per hour. The weight is unchanged at 1,430 kilograms, although the manual is 15 kilograms lighter than the PDK. Once again, there'll be the option of comfort and club sport specifications. The UK list price is a fraction under £112,000, and the first cars will arrive early in the summer.
You all know Andreas Preuninger. He's the head of Porsche's GT division. That makes him Mr. GT3. Now, Andreas, we know all the numbers, we know all the technical details. What I'd like to know is, what are the 2 or 3 most important improvements that you've made over the previous GT3?
Well, technology goes on and on, we always say, and we concentrated on that car on efficiency. Aerodynamical efficiency, this car, for instance, has 20% more downforce than the old car, the Gen 1 car, but has the same or even a slightly better coefficient drag. So we have a lot of aerodynamical efficiency, and same is on the drivetrain. Less internal resistance leads to more power on the wheels, which we like, and that was one of the main focuses as well. And the third thing for me personally, the success is we offer the car now with a manual transmission. So the customer can choose whether he's a PDK guy or a manual guy, and I think that's a very good thing. great news for the GT customers, I think.
And I've had a look at the rev counter, and I can see that the red line comes in at 9,000 RPM.
Like it should be on a GT3.
Proper screamer of an engine.
Yeah. So despite having a 4-liter displacement, we're revving to 9,000 RPM. So the 3.8 was revving to 9,000 as well. The 4-liter versions to 8.8 or 8.5, respective on RS and R. Here we are going full 9,000 RPM, no matter if it's PDK or manual transmission. The last 1,500 RPMs are a lot of fun, and the engine develops a lot of power on the highest RPMs even, and still on the same time is very torquey down low, with all the measures we had on the engine, like the bigger displacement, intake system with a dual flapper, and the less internal resistance makes the car a lot more snappier than before, which is a good combination.
I think this is perhaps the most distinctive looking GT3 that we've seen yet, particularly in Guards red with some of the black detailing, the pinstripe on the wheel.
You like it?
I think it looks fantastic.
The pinstripe is an option, so not everybody likes the pinstripe. I'm not a fan for black wheels normally, but the matte black looks very cool, especially when it's got this Ducati Superbike-like pinstripe, which separates the rim from the tire, shows off the diameter, the big diameter of the wheel. So yeah.
Overall, you must be delighted
with
how it looks.
We're very happy with it. It's very aesthetically at a high quality, I would say, and it's a little bit less feminine than the old front, for example. It's more masculine, it's more purposeful looking, and still very clean. And its form follows function. It still is beautiful, and that's a big point on the car. Goes from the front for the front and the back as well.
Sure. One last question: is this the best GT3 ever?
Absolutely. I mean, it's the newest GT3. It should be the best. People always keep me asking, "What's your favorite car?" Mostly, it's the newest one, because there's so much development time that went into it, so much more thoughts, technology, experience from the older models, which are still great, every one of them. But if I can, my personal car right now, which I like to drive most, is exactly that, with a manual gearbox for normal road use. So we're very proud on that thing. And I think, yeah, this is the best GT3 up to date, no doubt about it.
There we go, we've heard it from the man himself, the best GT3 ever. We'll drive it ourselves at the end of April, and we'll have the verdict for you then.
To watch the previous 911 GT3 in action, click on the links. Remember, the best way to catch these films the moment we publish them is to subscribe to the channel.